What I'm about to say is gonna hurt a lot of you, so warning. But how is Impractical Jokers still on TV? Like, don't get me wrong, I love the show, but I think we can all agree that it's ran its course. The show first premiered on December 15th, 2011, a whole 15 years ago, and since then, one cast member quit, 50% of the cast faced serious public allegations, the show got kicked off its home network, ratings dropped year after year, and somehow, they just wrapped season 12, and I'm pretty sure season 13 is on the way. 12 seasons on 2 different networks with a movie with a cast that isn't even the same cast anymore, kinda. Like, can you imagine what would have happened if Stranger Things, if one of the kids decided not to go forward with the show and pursue other work? Like, the ending of this show would be horrible and people were like, oh, that was the worst ending ever. That's called irony. So let me ask you a question that's been sitting in the back of my head for a while, and the title of the video once again: how is Impractical Jokers still on TV? This thing is getting ran into the ground at this point. But before we get into all that, we need to talk about why anyone cared about this show in the first place, because if we're gonna understand how this show survived everything it survived, we have to look and understand what made it work. And I actually mean like actual work, not just it was on and people watched it work, like genuinely good television, air quotes, good television. It's not winning any Oscars, but it was good. Oh, and Mike did a great video on how far the Impractical Jokers grow sometimes. Great video. Go watch that out. Go check them out. Go support a small YouTuber. Let them know I sent you. But the show is very simple. Joe, Sal, Q, and Murr dare each other to do increasingly uncomfortable things and people in public. If you refuse a challenge or don't complete your goal, you lose and get an X on your score. You get enough losses in an episode and you get punished at the end. And that's basically the whole show. I mean, you could explain it to your grandmother in 30 seconds and she'd probably get it. Actually, I don't know if that's true. I don't know your grandmother, but it's one of those shows that you and your dog could watch and you'd both get a laugh out of it, you know? But here's what's separated from every other prank show on television. They weren't pranking strangers. The jokes weren't to make the strangers look dumb. They were pranking each other, making themselves look dumb. These are guys who had been friends since high school. They formed a comedy troupe called the Tenderloins in 1989, and by the time the show premiered, they had been friends for over 20 years. And that history, that genuine decades long, we have seen each other at our worst friendship, all hyphenated, is what you felt every time you watched this show. I mean, you can't make this kind of thing up. You can cast 4 funny people and put them in a van or behind the scenes on the TV and give them earpieces and hope for the best, but you can't manufacture 30 years of shared history. And I think that's why this show was such a hit. Like when Murr is strapped to a roller coaster about to get his eyebrows waxed off and the other 3 are watching from the ground absolutely corpsing, that's real. When Sal refuses a challenge because he has a documented clinical fear of germs or a fear of cats and the other guys make him suffer every single season, that's real. The chemistry wasn't something that a writer's room built. It was already there. The show just pointed a camera at it. The format also had something most reality TV completely lacks. It had structure. Every episode had small challenges in the first half, say the weird thing to a stranger, hold this pose, don't break character no matter what, and all of that built towards one punishment at the end. Stakes in every single episode. A payoff was always guaranteed. It was structured like a perfect little comedy machine that someone just left running. And it worked every time because the punishment was always personal and fine picked. They knew each other well enough to know exactly where to aim. Murr hates embarrassment, Sal hates germs, Q hates physical discomfort, and Joe famously feared almost nothing, which meant that when he finally got punished, it had to be something crazy, like taking his family hostage. And True TV knew exactly what they had. This show was their flagship, their whole identity. Before Impractical Jokers, True TV was a network known for airing court footage and police chases. The network had rebranded from Court TV in 2008 and was still trying to figure out what it was. And then the show premiered, became a hit, and suddenly True TV had a reason to exist. Impractical Jokers was to True TV what SpongeBob is to Nickelodeon. The one thing that a whole network could point at and say, that's us, except SpongeBob didn't have a cast that quit when he was getting a divorce, but say, maybe it's not a perfect comparison, but you get my point. They built this entire universe around it. Specials, a live touring show that sold out arenas across the country, actual arenas, not theaters, arenas. Impractical Jokers Cruises, a feature film in 2021 that somehow got a wide theatrical release and made its budget back. Merchandise, spin-offs. At their peak, this show had 4 guys from Staten Island who were legitimately entertainment brands with more extensions than most scripted shows could ever dream of. From a show that was essentially 4 friends being annoying in public, This is genuinely absurd amount of cultural real estate that they were able to create. So that's what was on the table. That was something that was worth protecting. And then everything went sideways. So now let's talk about everything that should have killed the show. And I mean should have. Like, by every normal metric of how television works, Impractical Jokers should be a memory right now. A remember that show, or a conversation at the bar, like Key and Peele. Key and Peele is a great show, you know, but it's over. But this one is not. So let's go through that list. All right, we're gonna get into some real stuff, so if y'all don't want to hear this, cover up your ears. But first, Joe Gatto. Joe was by most accounts easily the fan favorite, the big guy, the one who could keep a straight face through anything, who could improvise his way out of any situation, who had this natural charisma that made even the worst challenges watchable. All he wanted to do was make his boys laugh. In December of 2021, Joe announced that he was leaving the show. His reason was that he and his wife were separating and he wanted to focus on his family, which meant more than the world to him.
Yeah, Joe I talked to, we haven't missed a step. He just doesn't work on the show anymore.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so, because we kind of like did this whole contract negotiation for what we did in like a vacuum. And it's not that he wouldn't come back, but like he's sunk his teeth into like a whole bunch of other stuff now. It's just like he moved past it, you know?
Yeah.
And this is probably like maybe the last season or two, you know what I mean? So it's just like, all right, we've been doing it without him for a whole season and a half. He's doing his thing. He's good. He's in a good place now. And so it's business as usual.
And for a show built entirely on chemistry of 4 specific people, losing one of the 4 is not a small thing. That's like losing a quarter of the Beatles and saying the band is fine, you can keep going. Sure, but it's not the same band. Even their intro song says 4 lifelong friends who compete to embarrass each other. Now it's 3 lifelong friends who compete to embarrass each other. Like, is Joe not your friend anymore? They say they're still friends, but that's not the point I'm trying to get at. Now think about this hypothetical. Would the show still have been as bad if Murr had been the one that left? Nah, I don't think so. I feel like Joe wasn't just 25% of the show. He was like 30 to 33% of the soul of the show. The show lost a third of itself. Joe was that one outlier that you didn't know what he was gonna do. He saw the structure of the show and just kind of ignored it sometimes. The show tried to fill in the gap with celebrity guest stars like Paula Abdul, William Shatner, different famous faces rotating throughout to just sit in for Joe's seat. And look, it wasn't unwatchable completely. The Post Malone episode was actually pretty decent, but it also wasn't Impractical Jokers. It became something else. It was a show trying to convince you that it was Impractical Jokers and that the show itself was just fine. Here's the difference. The guests, they didn't have 30 years of history with Sal, Q, and Murr. They didn't know where to aim. The personal cruelty that made the punishments funny was gone and replaced with celebrity appearances that felt like a band-aid on a bullet wound. But then after Joe left the show, he and James had their spouts of controversy. In late March 2025, Murr faced allegations of inappropriate behavior, including grooming and inappropriate messaging with fans. These claims surfaced shortly after serious allegations were made about his fellow castmate Joe Gatto, which we'll get into later. Here's some of the key details of the allegations. Basically, Murr was accused of engaging in inappropriate long-term conversations with at least 2 individuals when they were minors, one specifically noted as 16 years old. Reports indicate interactions began via social media, direct messages involving personal accounts, and in some cases progressing to in-person meetings at shows or events. One accuser alleged that interactions involved being asked for personal data, receiving gifts or money for transport, and receiving messages in the middle of the night. The alleged victim shared screenshots of messages and social media interactions to support their claims. Funny enough, as of this recording, James Murray, someone in the Impractical Jokers Reddit, just said that James Murray is actually blocking anyone on social media who brings up any of this stuff. So Murr, if you block me on YouTube, that is hilarious. Now let's talk about Joe Gatto. We know he recently went through a divorce, but it does seem like him and his wife are actually back together now. But a couple years after he'd already left the show, Joe Gatto became subject to serious allegations regarding sexual misconduct and assault, leading him to cancel his comedy tour and voluntarily entering an inpatient treatment facility. Here are some of those allegations for Joe Gatto. A woman alleged that Joe sexually assaulted her in September 2023 in a Milwaukee hotel after she attended one of his shows. She claimed the incident involved physical bruising. Gatto denied the assault allegations, stating that anyone who knows me knows full well that I wouldn't assault anyone. However, he also admitted to exercising poor judgment and violating the trust of his loved ones, announcing a temporary step away from the public eye to focus on himself. There's also a full video on all of that he posted on social media. I'll see if I can find it and basically put it right here. Shortly after the first, a second woman, a former employee of Gatto's, alleged to People magazine that Gatto sexually harassed her, made inappropriate comments, and created an uncomfortable work environment with unwarranted behaviors. Following these allegations, Gatto canceled his ongoing tour and checked into an inpatient facility to, quote, continue working on himself, and posted a video. As of May 2025, reports indicate that Gatto has completed his inpatient program and was continuing to recover at home. With both of these situations happening to basically 50% of the Impractical Jokers main cast, people started wondering what will happen to upcoming seasons. Would it be just Q and Sal next season? Would I have to jump in and be the new Impractical Joker? Which I'm totally fine to do. And then True TV. In 2023, Warner Bros. Discovery, which owns both True TV and TBS, started moving Impractical Jokers from True TV over to TBS. And TBS is a bigger network, technically, more distribution, broader reach, but it also meant that the show was no longer the flagship of anything. It was just another show on a bigger shelf. True TV built its identity around the show, and at one point, The Carbonaro Effect, which is also a great show. I think it got like 8 seasons. It's another great show. Please watch it. Similar premise show, but with magic and just one guy. TBS already had its identity. Impractical Jokers went from being the star in the room to being the new transfer student at a school that already had its own social hierarchy, and the ratings reflected that. Peak Impractical Jokers was pulling over 1 million viewers an episode regularly. Recent seasons can't touch that. They also just don't have the same feel, in my opinion. The audience didn't leave all at once. We kind of just slowly started drifting away, the way you drift from a show you used to love but actually stopped actively following. I mean, I will rewatch a lot of the old stuff. They're classic and they are still funny, I have to admit. But let's zoom out for a second, because while Impractical Jokers were surviving all that, let's look at what's happening to every other prank show on television. Jackass is done. Johnny Knoxville retired from stunt work. The cast aged out. Bam Margera had years of very public personal struggles, and the franchise has been quietly winding down since Jackass Forever in 2022. Punked, Ashton Kutcher's flagship show from 2003 to 2007, and then came back again for like 1 season in 2012, and then back again in 2019 on Quibi. Does anybody remember Quibi? That thing that lasted like 4 months. It was just only vertical content. And then there's Candid Camera, the original, the grandfather of all this, which first aired in 1948, has been revived so many times that nobody can keep track. Scare Tactics, that's gone. The Carbonaro Effect, that's been canceled. True TV's own prank shows, the ones that were supposed to fill in the gaps around Impractical Jokers, they're all gone. There are no other shows on True TV. I mean, well, what True TV was. Every single one of them is dead, and Impractical Jokers is on season 12. Why is that? What is the difference between all those other shows and Impractical Jokers? I think the difference is the friendship. Every other prank show on this list pranked strangers, random people on the street, celebrities who didn't know what was coming, unsuspecting members of the public, and that works for a while, but it kind of has a ceiling, right? You can only watch strangers get embarrassed so many times before it starts feeling mean, before the joke curdles a little. With Impractical Jokers, they pranked each other. The target was always one of the 4 of them. The strangers were props, not victims, and that one structural difference is why this show had infinite replay value. You're not laughing at some random person's expense or a person's humiliation. You're laughing at 4 friends absolutely destroying each other with a precision that only comes from knowing each other for 30 years. That's not a prank show. That's friendship being televised. I mean, it felt like them doing things they'd already be doing if the cameras weren't rolling, and you can't cancel a friendship, apparently. We've established that Impractical Jokers survived things that would have killed a normal show. Impractical Jokers is like, it's like comfort food, right? It's not appointment television. It's not the show you clear your schedule for. It's not the thing you're texting your friends about on a Tuesday night. It's the show you put on when you've had a long day and you don't want to think too much. When you've already watched everything you already want to watch. When you need something familiar and low stakes and guaranteed to produce at least 3 genuine laughs within a 30-minute window, maybe even a dry chuckle, haha. Before the Warner Brothers Discovery merger started, reshuffling everything, True TV had basically 2 modes: Impractical Jokers and everything else hoping to be Impractical Jokers. Carbonaro Effect, those various clip shows, the late night blocks returns, all of it orbiting around one show. Networks do this all the time. They find that one thing that works and they ride it until the wheels come off, because the alternative is taking a risk on something new. And something new might fail. A known commodity that's declining is still safer than an unknown commodity that might collapse. So they keep it going. Probably why Grey's Anatomy and Simpsons will never end. They keep ordering new seasons, not because it's a hit anymore, but because it's a known quantity. It's a known show, it's predictable. And in the current TV landscape, filling a slot reliably and getting those ad placements is worth more than people give it credit for. But there's something bigger happening here too. We're living through a full-blown comfort rewatch era. The Office hasn't aired a new episode since 2013, and the best episodes probably haven't aired since 2011. And this show is probably the most streamed show on the entire internet for years. Friends ended in 2004, and people are still watching it like it's new. There's a massive appetite right now, and I mean massive, for content that feels safe and familiar, not challenging, not prestige, not the thing that everyone's just going to be talking about at the water cooler, just comfortable. Impractical Jokers fits that perfectly. You don't need to have watched season 1 to watch season 11 or season 6 or season 7. Every episode is self-contained. You can jump in anywhere, check out whenever, and then come back 3 months later without missing anything. That's not a flaw in the format, that's a feature of it. A very valuable feature in 2026 when nobody has the bandwidth to keep up with serialized television anymore. And the brand has tried its hand in expansion. Brian Q. Quinn recently executive produced a show called Foul Play on True TV. We'll see how that turns out. You don't use a dying brand to launch new content. You use a brand that still has equity. Foul Play might not be a hit as of now. I mean, heck, it might not ever be a hit. We'll see. The Impractical Jokers also tried making another show called The Misery Index, and that got ended after, I think, maybe 2 seasons. I thought it was pretty decent, but hey, you know, they tried. So where does that leave the main show itself? It's not what it was. It's never going to be what I would call it during its golden years, which is like seasons 2 through 9. The version of Impractical Jokers that was pulling millions of viewers and selling out arenas and releasing a theatrical film, that version is done. That's all. What's left is something a bit smaller, a bit quieter, in a way, maybe a little bit more honest. 3 guys and whoever they recruit, you know, occasional special guests, still doing what they've already done, still getting punished in some way, right? There's that comfort food aspect. You're not eating it because it's the best meal you've ever had. You're eating it because it's there. It's quick. You can microwave it in 2 minutes. It's done. You know what it is. It's warm. How's Impractical Jokers still on television? In all honesty, it probably shouldn't be. Well, at least not any more new episodes. The version of the show that deserved to be on television, the 4 friends, the genuine chemistry, the format firing on all cylinders, that version ended with Joe left. I think we can all agree on that. So what's on now is a continuation, or maybe an epilogue version of the show. A brand running on fumes and familiarity. And if we're being completely real, there's an argument that letting it end with some dignity back in 2021 would have been the right call. Or maybe try one more season after Joe left and just see how it goes, which they obviously did. But that's not what happened. And weirdly, that's kind of the point. Impractical Jokers is still on TV for 3 reasons, and 3 reasons only. First reason, the show is a cockroach. The show has survived a cast departure, legal allegations, a network switch, and ratings decline that would have put any other show on the ground. Netflix would have canned this show in a second. It didn't survive because it was great. It survived because it was built on something real, a genuine friendship, and genuine things are harder to kill than manufactured ones. 2, it really has 0 competition right now. Every other prank show is dead. Jackass is done. Punk got canceled twice, 3 times, whatever. Candid Camera hasn't been relevant since your parents were young, and we know that was like 80 years ago. Impractical Jokers isn't winning the race. It's just the last one still running. 3, it became comfort content. And comfort content doesn't get canceled. It gets inherited. It gets passed down. It becomes the thing that your younger siblings watch, then their friends watch, and then people who weren't even born when it premiered watch. Kind of like Nick at Night when they showed like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Full House, the George Lopez show. Like, that's what those became. The Office is still being discovered by 18-year-olds who weren't alive for Dunder Mifflin era. And Practical Jokers is on the same slow trajectory. Look, we talk about television like it's supposed to be an art, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it's just supposed to be there. Familiar, warm, exactly what you expected. Practical Jokers figured that out 14 years ago, 15 years ago now, and never let go of it. The show that refuses to die might tell us more about what we actually want from television than any other prestige drama ever could. And on that note, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.